go off your shopping list, especially in recessionary trends.
That lab-grown diamonds are not mined, and they do away with the entire mining. So they save up on all the environmental damage that is associated with mining, and of course, the mining cost, which is why they're even more affordable.
People that is impacted by all these recessions are the artisans, are the people who work in this industry, right? But I think lab-grown diamond has allowed them to actually use their skills in the same product.
This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome back. The National Company Law Tribunal will be hearing plea against embattled edtech firm BYJU'S today. Now, today's hearing is based on the oppression and mismanagement plea filed by 4 investors of BYJU, including Peak 15, Process, General Atlantic and Sofina. Remember, these 4 investors had opposed the company's decision to raise $200 million rights issue at a post-money valuation of $225 million, which was 99% lower than BYJU'S last funding round valuation of $22 billion. In addition, ahead of the NCLT hearing today, BYJU'S has said that it has paid partial salaries to employees for the month of March. The company's founder and CEO, Baiju Ravindran, reportedly raised debt once again in personal capacity to pay March salaries to its staffers. Earlier as well, cash-strapped BYJU'S resorted to paying part salaries for the month of February and had delayed payments for the month of March. That crucial NCLT hearing will be something to watch out for, will be perhaps deciding fate of BYJU'S investors and the ongoing battle between investors as well as Baiju Ravindran. But moving on to Indian spices now, who continue to make headlines after popular Indian spice brands MDH and Everest were found to have contained cancer-causing ingredients. India's food regulator has swung into action. The Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, FSSAI, has issued orders to collect samples of spices from their respective manufacturing plants. The samples will be tested to detect the presence of pesticides named ethylene oxide in those samples. Now remember, Hong Kong and Singapore recently banned 4 spice products from Indian manufacturers MDH and Everest after they were found unsuitable for consumption. The Hong Kong food regulator says that a routine surveillance program uncovered the presence of ethylene oxide in 3 spice mixes from MDH Group, including Madras curry powder, sambar masala powder and the curry powder in general. Additionally, Everest Group's fish curry masala was found to contain pesticide ethylene oxide, which is classified as a Group 1 carcinogen. Now, Singapore also last week took similar action against Everest, alleging presence of ethylene oxide at levels which surpass permissible limits. The news has rung alarm bells here in India, and it does look like India's food safety regulator has finally flung into action. We'll be testing samples from both MDH as well as Everest. Shifting focus now to Vodafone India, whose follow-on public offer was subscribed 7 times on 22nd of April, which was the last day or the final day of the bidding, with investors bidding for 8,000 crore worth equity shares. The country's 3rd largest telecom operator offered 1,260 crore shares in the 18,000 crore FPO, the largest such public offering in the country. This comes as a part of a larger strategy by Vodafone Idea to gather 45,000 crore rupees through a combination of debt and equity. Now, qualified institutional buyers took the lead, subscribing 17.56 times the portion reserved for them. Non-institutional investors purchased 4.13 times their allotted quota of shares reserved for them, but retail investors' interest was a bit muted and they picked up 91% of their allotted quota. All in all, Vodafone is going to raise the 18,000 crore rupees. Karthik Malhotra here with me, which it was hoping to raise, and 45,000 of course is the larger plan for Vodafone Idea to come out of its current existing state of a place where it's perhaps not going to sustain and not be able to flourish and not be able to realize its 4G plans if it doesn't raise that money?
Absolutely. 4G and 5G both, incidentally, because the 4G services for Vodafone were also under question and under a lot of scrutiny, and that led to customers or subscribers porting out of Vodafone successively over the last 2 years plus and port to other competitors including Jio and Airtel. Now, this FPO obviously comes at a very, very critical juncture for Vodafone Idea because it needs the money. It needs to create a war chest to be able to at least come up to the level of offering existing services at competitive efficiency and competitive prices to not lose customers to Jio and Airtel. And at best, going forward, perhaps have some sort of a winning chance to get certain fresh subscribers added. So I think at one level, it has to stop loss. It has to just prevent the exodus of customers, and at another level, become competitive enough to attract new customers into its fold if it wants to play this, this competitive telecom market game in India. Now, QIBs as well as anchor investors have pretty much shored up most of the FPO spoils out there, leaving the retail investors with just about 12,000 odd crore rupees, and the rest of it, the 5,400 crore rupees, has been picked up by institutional players. Not surprising, names like Fidelity and GQG making it to the anchor investor shore up list, which pretty much means that there is certain value that they believe
in Vodafone.
Absolutely, they believe there is value that they can derive out of this fairly fledgling company over the last 2 years in a very fragile state, not really sure, uncertain of where it is headed, but raking up about 4,000 or 5,400 odd crore rupees is something which shows that there is some bets that they're willing to make in the third largest and a very small but yet the third largest telecom player in India. Now, from the 18,000 crore rupees which Vodafone Idea is getting, it seems that it will want to park aside about 3,000 to 4,000 crore rupees in working capital requirements, operational expenses for corporate entities to function. But the balance, about 12,700 odd crore rupees, is going to be split between three large buckets. The first bucket is going to be to shore up its 4G services. The next is going to be, to really get the 5G rollout initiated and at some point invest in the infrastructure and the equipment required for 5G rollout. And about 3,000 odd crore rupees is going to be spent in the deferred spectrum dues which the company still owes to the government. So broadly, that is the bucket under which these expenses are going to be divided from the proceeds of the FPO. But I think one thing is very clear, that revenge investments is something that Vodafone wants to do. It has been in the dock, it has been down and out for a while. It wants to spring back to action, and it wants to shore up a war chest that it can at least play in the segment, if not fight just yet, and victory still seems fairly elusive.
Yeah, victory seems elusive also by the way of the fact that it's losing subscribers at a very fast clip to obviously players who currently offer 5G services. Can it spring back into action with the 18,000 crore rupees it has raised so far? What are the plans as far as raising that 45,000 crore rupees is concerned? Is there still time and hope?
I mean, see, I think there is definitely a headline to be made, and the headline is that its subscription has been oversubscribed 7 times, which means there is a larger investor confidence, investor faith in Vodafone Idea, and that makes its chances of raising fresh capital, whether using the debt or the equity route, a little more plausible, if not possible. 18,000 crores in itself is definitely not enough, but Vodafone Idea has a right to play. Whether it is going to exploit that right in a way that the investments are robust, sound, future ready and compelling enough to get subscribers back or not, I think a lot of that has also got to do with the 3,000 crore rupees it is parking aside for working capital. I believe a big chunk of that should be used on attracting subscribers back by way of marketing initiatives, etc. So let's see if the Vodafone dog is going to come back, that pug which made headlines with Hutch once upon a time. If those campaigns are going to come back, or the Zuzu campaigns are going to come back, or if Abhishek Bachchan's Idea association is going to come back or not. But Vodafone has to be very, very aggressive in A, arresting the subscriber loss, and B, at some level, attracting new subscribers with this new war chest.
And perhaps we're going to see more of Vodafone now that the FPO has been subscribed and Vodafone is likely to raise 18,000. It has in fact raised that 18,000 crore rupees as of the last day of bidding, which ended yesterday. But with that, it's time for a short break. We'll be back in just a bit.
name a place and there is a marathon.
Running in the snow is a much more tougher thing than running just in the oil.
Everything is very different from the plains marathon.
जहाँ से मेरे को लगा था कि इट वुड बी ए पीस ऑफ केक, इसके लिए बहुत मेहनत करनी पड़ती है, जैसे दिखता है वैसा होता नहीं है सर.
It is definitely much more tougher.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. News is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
How do you fulfill that promise? Because ultimately expectations have to be met. If you look at the political landscape, is it really changing for women? And what is the inability of the forces that dead bodies surface but not the living people?
Welcome back. If you're planning to visit Ayodhya anytime, you are likely to spot an Ola pickup zone at the arrival and exit points of the airport. Now, ride-hailing platform Ola Mobility says that it has started operations in Ayodhya district of Uttar Pradesh. According to the platform, the services have been started at the Maharishi Valmiki International Airport, and it has also installed a dedicated pickup zone at the airport. Ola Mobility also has a dedicated team of representatives who would be available 24/7 to manage its operations at the airport and address customer queries. Ola says that Ayodhya is emerging as one of the fastest growing cultural and tourist hubs in India, and the company plans to serve 1 billion customers and unlock growth and opportunities in locations which hold spiritual and cultural significance. And moving on, is your performance bonus linked to your attendance requirements? Well, Tata Consultancy Services or TCS has introduced a new policy which links variable pay of employees directly with their in-office attendance. The updated policy establishes 4 attendance slabs which will be dictating the variable pay for employees. TCS requires a minimum attendance of 85% for employees to be made eligible for full quarterly variable pay. On the other hand, employees with less than 60% attendance will not qualify for the quarterly bonus at all. Remember, the new revised policy has been made effective from April 17th onward, which means if you're working in TCS and you're not coming to office regularly, your in-office attendance is less than 60%, you're not going to get that variable pay, Karthik.
So, I believe, Shweta, the whole IT employee base out there has really taken very kindly to the pandemic-induced work-from-home policy. And if I may say, they've fairly gotten spoilt with all the perks that came with working in pajamas, working in your own comfort, and not really having to bear with traffic, getting to work and coming back. And the argument that the employers had given all this while was that if I end up saving 2 hours of travel time, am I not better off giving 1 additional hour towards work? And it becomes pretty much a win-win for the organization as well as for me as an employee. But it seems that obviously, nothing can be too good to be true, and a too good a win-win situation did not really work in favor of the employers in the case of the IT players. And TCS, for the last 1.5 years or so now, has been struggling to convince employees to come back to work. So, while flexibility is still something which all IT companies out there have included as part of their HR policies, flexibility does entail employees at least sometimes, once in a while, dropping by to office and really having a physical presence in the office environment. And that is something which it seems TCS employees were continuing to evade and did not want to struggle with traffic and come down to office. And that has now perhaps led to this new policy where your variable pay could range anything between 8% to as high as about 14-15% depending on your seniority. Your variable pay is now linked to your office attendance, which means if you come to office 85% of the times or more, going up to 100% of the times, then you're eligible to get 100% of your variable pay. This variable pay, of course, is again a function of how well you as an employee have performed, how well the organization or your unit has performed, and overall the environment about profitability of the company. But whatever the company decides to pay out as variable, you are eligible to get a full 100% of that. If you come to office 8 out of 10 days at least, 8.5 out of 10 days at least. Now, if you fail to meet that mark, and if you're coming to office between 75% to 85% of the times, which means 3 out of 4 working days on an average, then you're eligible to get a much smaller payout of just about 75% or so. If you're in the bracket of 60% going up to 75% of office attendance, you get about 60% of your variable. But if your in-office attendance is anything below 60%, which means you're deciding to not come to office even 6 out of 10 times, then unfortunately TCS employees are not going to get any variable pay.
All right. I mean, of course, this is going to raise a lot of eyebrows as to how companies are actually making it mandatory by not giving them what they believe they may rightfully deserve by the way of that variable pay.
I mean, see, you know, unfortunately, you cannot choose your parents and you cannot choose your bosses, and you can definitely not
choose your workplace.
You can choose your workplace, but with the kind of environment that we have right now, getting jobs is also not all that easy. So, and all IT companies out there are struggling with pretty much the same sense of chaos. Headcount has declined.
All across.
Reports of washout years, etc. And the challenge of efficiency is something which IT companies will have to win to be able to stay competitive in the age of AI-dominated work efficiency in any case.
Absolutely. And at a time when all bellwether IT companies have reported a reduction in headcounts for the first time in last 10 years, TCS is now mandating for employees to come to office if they want to get that variable pay. Over 85% attendance will ensure a variable pay of 100%. Anything below 60 means you will not be eligible to get that variable pay. But before we close this bulletin, 39 degrees in Celsius, not a drop to drink. Bengaluru, once India's verdant jewel, is now a cautionary tale of unplanned urbanization. Depleting reservoirs and borewell running dry, the city is facing its worst water crisis. Witness the human cost of a city that forgot it was a garden. Watch the next Bengaluru tonight on News 9 Plus app. Stay ahead of the curve. And with that, it's a wrap on this show. Thank you for watching.